I Know What You Did Last Summer. I Know What You Did Last Summer is a 1997 American slasher film directed by Jim Gillespie, written by Kevin Williamson, and starring Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Ryan Phillippe, and Freddie Prinze Jr. It is loosely based on the 1973 novel of the same name by Lois Duncan and is the first installment in the I Know What You Did Last Summer franchise. The film centers on four young friends who are stalked by a hook-wielding killer 1 year after covering up a car accident in which they killed a man. The film also draws inspiration from the urban legend known as the Hook and the 1980 slasher films Prom Night 1980 and The House on Sorority Row 1982. After having written Scream released the year prior, Williamson was approached to adapt Duncan's source novel by producer Erik Feig. Where Williamson's screenplay for Scream contained prominent elements of satire and self-referentiality, his adaptation of I Know What You Did Last Summer reworked the novel's central plot to resemble a straightforward 1980s-era slasher film. I Know What You Did Last Summer was released theatrically on October 17, 1997. It received mixed reviews from critics but was commercially successful, grossing $125 million worldwide on a budget of $17 million, and remaining #1 at the U.S. box office for 3 consecutive weeks. It was also nominated for and won multiple awards. The film was followed by 2 sequels, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer 1998 and I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer 2006. I Know What You Did Last Summer has also been parodied and referenced in popular culture, and credited alongside Scream with revitalizing the slasher genre in the 1990s. Plot: on July 4, 1996, in Southport, North Carolina, Julie James and her friends Ray Bronson, Helen Shivers, and Barry Cox drive to the beach. While driving along a coastal byway, they accidentally hit a pedestrian. Julie's friend Max Nurick passes by them on the road. Julie reassures Max of their well-being, and he leaves. The group decides to dump the body in the water and never discuss what happened. A year later, in 1997, Julie returns home from college for the summer. The friends have gone their separate ways. Julie receives a letter with no return address, stating, I know what you did last summer. Julie tracks down Helen, and they take the note to Barry, who suspects Max. They confront Max on the docks, and Barry threatens him with a hook. Julie meets Ray, who now works as a fisherman. Later, Max is killed by a figure in a rain slicker wielding a hook. Barry discovers a note in his gym locker saying, I know. He is then ambushed by the same assailant stealing and driving his car. Julie researches newspaper articles, which lead her to believe that the man they ran over was a local named David Egan. Helen and Julie meet with David's sister Missy at her home. Missy explains that their family was devastated by David's death. That night, the killer sneaks into Helen's house, cuts off her hair while she sleeps, and writes soon in lipstick on her mirror. The following morning, Julie finds Max's corpse wearing Barry's stolen jacket and covered in crabs in the trunk of her car. When she calls the others, the body and the crabs are missing. Julie, Helen, and Barry confront Ray about the recent events. The latter claims to also have received a threatening letter. Julie goes back to visit Missy, while Barry and Helen participate in the 4th of July parade. Missy reveals David allegedly committed suicide out of guilt for the death of his girlfriend, Susie Willis, in a car accident, and shows David's suicide note to Julie. As the writing matches that of the note she received, Julie realizes it was not a suicide note, but a death threat. At the Kroger beauty pageant, Helen witnesses Barry being murdered on the balcony. She rushes upstairs with a police officer, but finds no sign of the killer or Barry. A police officer escorts Helen home, but the killer lures him into an alley and murders him. Helen runs to her family's store where her sister Elsa is closing for the night. The killer enters the store and murders Elsa. Helen is chased upstairs and escapes through a window, falling to an alleyway. She runs toward the street, but the killer stops her and slashes her to death. Julie finds an article mentioning Susie's father, Ben Willies, and realizes Ben was the man that they ran over moments after he killed David to avenge his daughter. She goes to the docks to tell Ray, but he does not believe her. Julie notices Ray's boat is called Billy Blue and flees. A fisherman appears and knocks Ray unconscious, inviting Julie to hide on his boat. On the boat, she finds photos and articles about her and her friends and pictures of Susie. The boat leaves the docks and the fisherman is revealed to be Ben Willies. He chases Julie below deck, where she uncovers the bodies of Helen and Barry in the boat's icebox. Ray regains consciousness and steals a motorboat to rescue Julie. He ultimately uses the rigging to sever Ben's hand and send him overboard. When Julie and Ray are questioned by the police, they deny knowing why Ben attempted to kill them, but are relieved not to have actually killed anyone and reconcile. A year later, in 1998, Julie is in college in Boston. As she enters the shower, she notices the words "I still know" written in the steam on the shower door. Moments later, a dark figure crashes through it as Julie screams. Cast, production, development, and writing. I Know What You Did Last Summer was a screenplay penned by Kevin Williamson several years beforehand, which was then rushed into production by Columbia Pictures upon the success of the Williamson-written Scream 1996. It was based on the 1973 novel of the same name by Lois Duncan, a youth-oriented suspense novel about four young people who are involved in a hit-and-run accident involving a young boy. Producer Erik Feig pitched the idea of a screen adaptation to Mandalay Entertainment and subsequently appointed Williamson to retool the core elements of Duncan's novel, rendering a screenplay more akin to a 1980s slasher film. Inspired by his father, who had been a commercial fisherman, Williamson changed the setting of the novel to a small fishing village and made the villain a hook-wielding fisherman. The killer's arming of himself with a hook is a reference to the urban legend The Hook, which the four main characters recount at the beginning of the film around a campfire. According to Williamson, he wrote the scene as a way of indicating what was to come. Basically, what I was doing was I was setting the framework to say, all right, audience, that's that legend. Now here's a new one. Unlike Williamson's screenplay for the film's contemporary, Scream 1996, which incorporated satire of the slasher film, I Know What Gillespie commented in 2008, "The joy of this film for me as a filmmaker was in taking the elements that we've seen before and saying to the audience, here's something you've seen before, knowing that they are saying we've seen this before and still getting them to jump." Gillespie also claimed that he felt Williamson's screenplay did not resemble a slasher horror movie and that he saw it rather as simply a really good story with a morality tale embedded within it. Pre-production. According to producer Stokely Chaffin, the producers sought out actors who were beautiful but likable. Director Gillespie recalled that though he had been unfamiliar with the screenplay's source material, that roughly 60 to 65% of the young women auditioning had read the novel as children. Jennifer Love Hewitt, who at the time was mainly known for her role on the television series Party of Five, was cast in the lead of Julie James based on her ability to project vulnerability, which the producers, director Gillespie and writer Williamson unanimously agreed upon. Initially, Hewitt was considered for the role of Helen. Melissa Joan Hart was offered a role, but she turned it down. She felt that the film was rip-off of Scream. For the role of Barry, the crew had envisioned an actor with a 6'2" in 1.88 m quarterback appearance, as the character had been written as an intimidating figure. Ryan Phillippe was ultimately cast in the part based on his audition, despite the fact that he was not as physically tall as the script had called for. Director Gillespie chose Freddie Prinze Jr. for the role of Ray because he felt Prinze himself. Sarah Michelle Gellar was the last of the lead performers to be cast in the role of Helen. Like Hewitt, Gellar was also known to American audiences at the time for her roles in television, primarily as the titular Buffy Summers on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Gillespie commented on casting Gellar, "I wanted an actress that had a warmth to her, but could still come off as being a bitch." For the supporting role of Missy, Gillespie sought an actress with significant screen presence, as the character, despite appearing in only 2 scenes, is central to several major plot points. And Hetch was cast in the role, which she recalled as being 2 days' worth of work that required her to be scary. Filming. Scottish director Jim Gillespie was hired to direct the film after being suggested by writer Williamson. Star Hewitt would later state in 2008 that Gillespie was to date her favorite director she's ever worked with. Principal photography began on March 31, 1997, and took place over a period of 10 weeks throughout the late spring early summer of 1997. Approximately 7 weeks of the 10-week shoot took place at night, which Gillespie says was difficult for the cast and crew, and also created commotion in primary small-town locations in which they shot. Gillespie devised a color scheme with cinematographer Denys Crossan, which was marked by heavy blues throughout and a notable lack of bright colors. For the beginning of the film, coastal areas of Sonoma County, California stood in for North Carolina, where the film is set. The opening shots of the sun setting on a rugged coast were filmed at Culmer Gulch, just north of the town of Jenner, on Highway 1. The car crash scene was also filmed on Highway 1 in the same area. A scene in which the 4 friends are seated around a campfire on the beach next to a wrecked boat was inspired by a painting Gillespie had seen in a reference book. To achieve the image, the art department purchased an old boat in Boga Bay, cut it in half and placed it at the beach location. The remaining scenes were filmed primarily around the town of Southport, North Carolina. Specific sites included the Amuzu Theater, where the beauty pageant is held, the Old Yacht Basin, and Southport Fish Company. Julie's house is on Short Street just north of Southport Marina. The daytime sequences shot on the marina show multiple vessels traversing the water, though real vessels. The boat traffic was orchestrated by a marine traffic coordinator to make the waterway appear lively. The Shivers department store setting in the film was discovered on location in Southport by director Gillespie, who was so impressed by the location that he reworked elements of the script in order to incorporate it into the film. It eventually became the primary setting for Helen's extended chase sequence with the killer. The exterior sequences of Julie's Boston College campus were in fact shot at Duke University, while the hospital sequence was filmed at Southport's Dosher Memorial Hospital in an unused wing of the hospital. The final sequence on the boat was shot on an actual water-bound vessel on the Cape Fear River, which proved difficult for the actors and crew. According to Gillespie, the filmmakers nearly lost the boat while attempting to dock it due to the volatile waters, after which they were forced to leave and shoot other footage until the following day. Post-production. Gillespie chose to film virtually no on-screen blood, as he did not want the film to be overly gratuitous in terms of violence. The scene in which Elsa has her throat slashed while standing against a glass door had originally been shot from behind without any blood appearing on the glass. However, producer Feig worried that the scene appeared medically impossible, after which Gillespie reshot it post-principal photography with a visual effect of blood spattering across the glass. Upon test screenings of the film, Gillespie and the producers decided that a death sequence needed to occur earlier in the film to establish a sense of legitimate danger for the main characters. The scene in which Max is murdered in the crab factory was subsequently filmed and implemented into the final cut to achieve this in the original script. His character was not killed. The original ending of the film featured a sequence in which Julie receives an email reading, "I still know." This ending was scrapped for the more dramatic ending featured in the final cut of the film, in which Julie finds the same message scrawled on a shower stall just before the killer comes crashing through the glass. This footage was also shot after principal photography on a soundstage next door to where Hewitt was filming Party of Five. Music. The film produced 2 soundtracks. One of them featured the score composed by John Debney, while the other contained various rock songs found in the film. Additional songs featured in the film, but not on a soundtrack: Forgotten Too by Ugly Beauty, Wake Up Call by the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, Where Did You Sleep Last Night by Lead Belly, Your Grand Old Flag by George M. Cohan, Beautiful Girl by Bing Crosby, Free by Alternate. Release. Marketing. In anticipation of the film's release, distributor Columbia Pictures began a summer marketing campaign that presented the film as being from the creator of Scream. Miramax Films subsequently filed a lawsuit against Columbia, arguing the claim was inaccurate as the director of Scream was Craven, not Williamson. The week following the film's theatrical release, a federal judge awarded Miramax an injunction requiring that Columbia remove the claim from their advertising campaign. Williamson had requested its removal prior, after seeing it on a theater poster. Miramax won a subsequent lawsuit against Columbia during a March 1998 hearing. In a press release, executive Bob Weinstein noted plans to vigorously pursue damage claims against Columbia Pictures for their use of the claim. Home media. The film was released on DVD by Columbia TriStar Home Video in the U.S. on June 16, 1998. Special features included a theatrical trailer and the filmmaker's commentary. Sony Pictures Home Entertainment released the film on Blu-ray for the first time on July 22, 2008, with additional special features including the director's short film, Joyride. On 30 September 2014, Mill Creek Entertainment re-released the film on Blu-ray as a budget disc, featuring the film alone, with no bonus materials. Reception. Box office. Critical response. The film received mixed reviews upon release, inevitably drawing both positive and negative comparisons to Scream, also written by Williamson. Mick Lassow considered the movie inferior to its predecessor. Richard Harrington, on the other hand, cited acquittals as superior to Scream. He described the newer picture as a smart and sharply drawn genre film with a moral center and with a solid cast of young actors to hold it. Garrett Ellie of Variety was also enthusiastic, calling the film a polished genre piece with superior fright elements that should perform it better. Roger Ebert gave the movie 1 of 4 stars and wrote that the best shot in this film is the first one, not a good sign. Entertainment Weekly praised Jennifer Love Hewitt's performance, noting that she knows how to scream with soul. Lawrence Van Gelder of the New York Times wrote of the picture, "This isn't real life. It's the grand guignol of I Know What You Did Last Summer," laying its claim to succeed Scream as a high-grossing and blood-drenched date-night crowd pleaser. And why shouldn't it? James Kendrick of the Q Network wrote that Williamson's characters are all generic types, but they are still believable as people, and they react realistically according to the situations. Kendrick added that the film was head and shoulders above earlier dead teenager movies. TV Guide's Maitland McDonagh awarded the movie 2 out of 5 stars, noting, "Screenwriter Kevin Williamson takes a step backward and writes the kind of movie Scream mocks. You can see him now, soaking up videos of Friday the 13th and Halloween, not to mention the lesser likes of He Knows You're Alone, Terror Train, and My Bloody Valentine, and saying." However, he contends that it is a much different film despite both screenplays being penned by the same writer. Whereas Scream relied heavily on self-conscious references and its pop culture veneer, Last Summer was a throwback to the slasher films of the early 80s. While, like Scream, it employed the services of a group of young, sexy, and almost impossibly good-looking actors, Last Summer played its horror straight. Those looking for a good old-fashioned slasher film were pleasantly surprised. Lois Duncan, the author of the original novel, heavily criticized the film adaptation. She stated in a 2002 interview she was appalled that her story was turned into a slasher film. As of July 2021, on review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, The film had a 44% approval rating based on reviews from 70 critics. The consensus said, a by-the-numbers slasher that arrived a decade too late. The mostly tedious I Know What You Did Last Summer will likely only hook die-hard. As of October 2020, Metacritic reported an aggregate score of 52 out of 100 based on reviews from 17 critics, signifying mixed or average reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B on an A+ to F scale. Accolades. Other media, 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 media. Sequels. The film was followed by I Still Know What You Did Last Summer 1998 and I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer 2006. In the first sequel, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Freddie Prinze Jr., and Luce Watson reprised their roles. The second sequel has very little relation to the first two, other than the premise, the villain and the producers. It featured new characters and a different setting. Television. A television series adaptation of the novel was announced in July 2019, with Neil H. Moritz and James Wen producing, and Shay Hatton writing the pilot. Amazon ordered a straight-to-series order in October 2020. In popular culture, I Know What You Did Last Summer has been referenced in various films and television series, and its central plot was parodied at length in the spoof film Scary Movie 2000. It was also spoofed in The Simpsons episode Treehouse of Horror X as I Know What You Diddly Idly Did, with Ned Flanders as the killer. Remake. This film was unofficially remade in India as Cup to High 2003, starring Tushar Kapoor. In an interview to Hindustan Times, Kapoor denied that makers his film copied this film. Works cited. Feig, Thomas, ed. 2010. The Philosophy of Horror. University Press of Kentucky. ISBN 978-813-13954-8. Gillespie, Jim, Merkovich, Steve 1998. I Know What You Did Last Summer, audio commentary DVD. Columbia TriStar Home Video. Harper, Jim 2004. Legacy of Blood, a comprehensive guide to slasher movies. Critical Vision. ISBN 978-8-1-900-48639-2. Murphy, Ernest 2009. The Suburban Gothic in American Popular Culture. Palgrave Macmillan. ISBN 978-230-21810-9. Rockoff, Adam 2016. Going to Pieces. The Rise and Fall of the Slasher Film 1978-1986. Macmillan. ISBN 978-786-49192-6. Sherry Timothy 2012. Teen Movies American Youth on Screen. Columbia University Press. ISBN 978-231-50160-160-6.